also are some industry conventions like, bluish colors and greenish are usually used for industries that need to convey trust and credibility, and like yellowish, orange colors are more for entertainment, so things like that. And user experience is user journey as a whole. So how we imagine it, how we direct it to meet their goals and to meet the goals of the business, and how users actually use and perceive your interface. So we as designers usually have two major parts of our work, use UX and UI. So UX is when we collect all the information about the users, the company, the industry, the market, and this exploration phase results in what is shown here. So basically those are wireframes, those are detailed mock-ups of the user journey, of the screens, what features are available for a user on each screen, how each screen is laid out, but they don't have any visual identity on them, not even the colors, because we don't want to distract ourselves and the client right now with all the visuals. We just want to confirm and design the user journey. And after that, the second phase is when we take these screens and make something like this. So apply the visuals. So what is a great interface design? Great interface design is always a balance between user goals and business objectives. And those are for sure different things, because for any business, the main goal is to make money, to increase user loyalty, to grow. So, for example, if we take an app, like a medical app, business objectives would be to show the paywall, which suggests to subscribe to the premium subscription relatively early in the app, but at the same time make it not irritating, so users don't just skip it, but make it persuasive enough so they are on their most on the right stage to buy this subscription. But user goals are completely different. For example, if this is a medical app, their goal is to stay healthy, to stay on track with their medication. So what app can provide for them is like timely notifications, usable and user-friendly flow of adding and tracking your medicine, and so on. So those are different things, right? And we need to combine them and design the whole flow so it acts perfectly for the business and at the same time keeps users satisfied. But that's not all for sure. A lot of other things like human perception psychology, which is my second favorite topic, because it's basically a whole discipline based on how human nervous system makes us perceive information. And that influences design decisions a lot. So what else? Variety of use cases, usage contexts, yes, very important thing as well, because it's usage context can be very different. We need to explore and know if our users are going to use the app with one hand or with two hands. Are they going to do it in a dimmed in the dimmed room, or in the street where sunlight, or I don't know, if they will be able to listen to something or not. So it's very important. Also, user expectations, user hesitations, and a bunch of limitations by users, by regulators, and of course by developers and tech. So, okay, let's start with the design principles. I'm gonna have 10 of them. And the first one would be grouping. So the major point here is that to convey hierarchy, to convey structure and importance, we use grouping. And grouping, it can be like, we can use different visual means to separate content into groups: separators, backgrounds, white space. But Well, my favorite one and the most fundamental one is this one, using varying amounts of white space. It is based on human psychology, our perception of objects that are connected, that have fewer white space between them as connected as a group. You can see on the right there are clearly two groups, even though we have no different backgrounds here, no separators, we just use the white space. This is called the proximity principle. So how it can be applied in the interface? The rule of thumb here is that within a group, between the objects, the space must be tighter, smaller than the space from the group to all the surrounding objects. As you can see on these screens, the spacing is quite random and chaotic because, yeah, about the group, we should perceive everything visual as a group. For example, here is a 2-line header, and it is a group. Here is a 4-line paragraph, and it is a group. Those are two separate groups. Then why do they have similar white space between the lines? That makes this screen look chaotic and not visually well, and also it's not very comfortable to understand. It's not very clear. So what should be done here is just simple separation with the white space. Now it's much better. Okay, second principle is that colors in the UI are not only used for the decoration. Mostly they are used for indication. And those are to indicate the interactivity most of the time. This is called a key color. One color that is used for most of the interactive elements like buttons, links, selectors, and so on. But they also can be used to convey the brand identity and to convey the emotion, like I said before. So what I mean by meaningful colors, here you can see an interface of speed test before and after Weird Clay redesigned it. So before is, I think it's like 2014 maybe, and they had this gauge colored, and colors are used here only for decoration. And actually it made sense back in 2014 because graphic interfaces were new to people, and they tried to resemble real physical objects as much as they could. So like to remove this gap, this learning, to flatten the learning curve. But in 2016, it wasn't relevant already because iOS introduced their new flat UI and we had to redesign. So what we did on the right is we used colors to indicate two types of testing the download speed and the upload speed. So download is greenish, upload is purple. And that's not all. As you can see, not whole gauge is colored, but only the part of it which is relevant to the current measured speed. So it actually facilitates the perception. You don't need to look at the numbers at all. You just open the app. You don't even need to wait until the test finishes. You just see how much of the circle is colored, and you instantly get an understanding of how well your internet performs. Here is an animation of how it works. And aesthetics just goes as a result. We didn't chase aesthetics when we did that, right? We chased the function, but it's good. It's well designed, so it just looks beautiful as a result. Okay, the next principle would be contrast. And the idea here is to direct users' focus to the most important things, and also convey hierarchy, structure, grouping, and importance, all using contrast. This actually, I think it's pretty obvious for most people. The problem here is that it just needs practice. So on the left, there is like a typical article, and it's actually how it looked before the redesign. It's not some screen that I made up. It's how it looked like, and you feel zero will to read through this because it's dull, it's monotonous, and there are no accents at all. So on the right, I used things like color, white space, separation, and different font sizes to create accents, to kind of weigh some ideas, and now it's much more palatable. Okay, the next principle is minimalism and simplicity. The rule of thumb here is that every pixel on the screen of the interface must have a reason to be there, and a designer must be able to explain like literally every pixel that you can see on the screen. So you can ask for that, don't be shy, because every pixel, like every line, every shadow, everything will compete for users' attention on the screen. And our goal is to highlight the most important things and remove everything that is excessive. Here's the Corsair interface as well before and after we redesigned it. Corsair is a global brand for, they actually manufacture peripherals for gamers like mice, keyboards, headsets, and computers as well. So this application is a desktop software which allows gamers to set their peripherals, change colors, change performance of their coolers, and so on, a lot of things. And they also have profiles. Profile is a set of settings, basically, that are typically named after games because you have a different set of actions, of macros, of colors for each game. So before, they had a lot of excessive decoration, like layers, shadows, separators, borders, like a lot. And it all looked outdated and basically like in your face. It's hard to distinguish really important things here because a lot of layers just interrupt your attention. So on the right, it's literally the same screen. It doesn't have fewer features or functions. It's literally the same, but we removed everything. We just left a list and the icons, and that's it. It looks much better. The next major thing, and okay, all the principles before that, they were more about UI, okay, so more about visuals. Even though I'm not a fan of this separation UI UX, you need to know that, but it's not something that I actually use in my design process a lot. I mean, appealing to like, this is UI, this is UX. No, because if any of those things will be like bad, will not comply with the best practices, the UX will be bad. The user won't reach their goals and the business will not get money. So those are two things of one. Okay, visibility of system state. This is a very major, the fundamental UX principle is that any system that a person interacts with must convey its status, what is going on, where they are in this process, what is happening right now, and what's gonna happen next. So here's a handy example. That's a one-time password screen. So on the previous screen, a user entered their phone number, and here they need to enter a one-time password or code that has been sent to their phone number. And what's wrong here? Well, what is going on? Like, which process is this? Just imagine that somebody, a friend, approached you and you had a short conversation, like 1-2 minutes long, and then you get back to your phone and see this screen. What's going on? Where are we? Which one-time code? Is it a digit code? Is it a letters code? Has it been sent to an email or to a phone? Like, what's going to happen next? So this can be fixed. And on the right, you can see fixed screen. There is clearly a header. This is a sign-up process. There is also a bar, a progress bar. Sign-up process consists of 4 steps, and we're on the second one. It's a 6-digit code, as we say. It has been sent to a phone number. And we also have an input field that consists of 6 tiles, which which minimizes the chance for you to enter less or more. You don't even actually have to read this, because you just see those 6 tiles and you immediately know that this is a 6-digit code. We also have a status which says the code has been sent, and that we will be able to resend it in, there is a timer, in 24 seconds. Also, there is a keyboard which is preset to numeric, which also minimizes any chance of error. And of course, the left screen is an exaggeration right now. You will probably not see it, but you will see a lot of screens like the right one, but with a letters keyboard, right? Or without a phone, or without 6 tiles for an input field. And also, they didn't get here immediately, right? We had a lot of screens like the left one when they started, but like one after another, apps used to like saw how others did it and switched to, eventually came to what we have on the right screen. Okay, so the next principle is match the real world and speak users' language. So this means that all the terminology, all the pictograms, all the concepts that are mentioned within your UI must be familiar to users and must come from the real world that they live in, and not just you and your team. So, for example, if you ask a user, well, how do we know what users, like which words users use when they think of a product, or like how they envision their experience? This is called user research, and mostly done by user interviews. So, like if you approach a future user of your bike subscription app, you may ask them, like, what would you like? What happened when you broke your bike the last time? And they would say, well, I went to the workshop and approached a bike mechanic. So you may fetch this word like bike mechanic. That's how users think of people who fix their bikes. They use this exact terminology. So when you design a screen, so this is a support screen that I designed for the bike subscription app in London. And one of their USPs is that a bike mechanic actually comes to the customer when they have problems with their bike. So this company, Buzzbike, they used to call their bike mechanics bike professor. That's their inner terminology. They are used to it. They like, even the position of these people is called bike professor. And this is something fancy. They like it. They feel like it differs them somehow from other companies, so they like it. But their users will not understand what book bike professor means. They will stumble here, they will get irritated because, well, they're having a problem, their bike just broke, they need help. So it's not the time for them to, figure it out what a bike professor means. So that's the right option is what we ended up with, and it's just book bike repair, because that's what people think of when they have problems with a bike. We also have this underline which says our mechanics come to you. So this is much better. Another example, on the left side there is an Apple Watch setting screen, and on the right side there is a fossil smartwatch setting screen as well. So those are basically the same things. These screens solve the same task. And on the left, you can see that you can set those complications, right? You can set the small widgets on your watch face, like weather, activity, or starting a workout. So you can see that they have a list of settings, and each is called like bottom left, bottom middle, bottom right. So you need to correspond, to match what is written here to how it looks on the face. It's basically handy, but it can be done better, because we can just put all these things right on the watch face. and like you will not need to do this mental like cognitive task to match one with another. You just see them immediately on the face and can match it with your real watch without any friction. So even though Apple Watch still have this interface, I still think that this one that we designed, I think like 5 years ago, is still better. Okay, so the next principle is prevent and fix mistakes. Users gonna make mistakes. This is just inevitable. So our task is to minimize the chance, and if they do, to provide them a straightforward way to fix them. Those are made, like generally is done with such things like providing an undo button. Oh, sorry for all this misalignment. I don't know why we have it here right now because I didn't have it in the file. It's when I started the presentation, for some reason it's misaligned. Of course, it should be aligned. Okay, so yeah, this is an undo button, which for a notification that flows from the top of the screen when you do something. Same for like the Google Mail. It's I can't even say how many times Gmail saved my life just by providing this undo button, because yeah, so many times. Also, given folders like recently deleted, this is iOS photos, and also any kind of masking, like having this card number separated with the spaces, having an verification like this tick, which indicates that the card number is correct, and also the type of card has been fetched, which also indicates that we are correct. Also, here there is a field like input 5-digit bike number. It's also one thing that we designed for the bus bike app, and this is for a mechanic who repairs a bike. They need to input the bike number into the system, and they had a lot of errors here. Like this was the major reason for the redesign in the first place, because they failed to input this bike number correctly, because they had to import this letter code and then the digit code. And here is a room for mistakes here, because they have to switch the keyboard, and sometimes people misstep when they switch the keyboard. And also these 4 letters are just the same for every bike. So what we can do here is just we preset them and ask to input only 5-digit number. So these things can like dramatically decrease the error rate and increase your interface performance. The second principle is external and internal consistency. And this is about having all your UI elements, their shapes, their colors, fonts, and even terminology consistent across all your products, and also consistent with the industry standards and the platform conventions. So what it means is that same things should look the same. And this is a very tricky part for any company of a like medium size that has more than 2 designers. It's very hard to sync. And we can see like in a lot of apps that like even in Uber, they have buttons of different shapes, even though those are the same buttons. So one quick example is that is the internal consistency, that you should stay consistent within a product or a family of products. For example, Speed Test, they have like up to, I don't remember precisely, but I think 7 or 8 platforms that they perform on, like mobile, iPad, TV, Chrome extension, Mac app, and we need to stay consistent. Like use the same colors, the same icons, the same fonts. Like these are elements of the same world, and they need to be consistent. Otherwise, users, like a lot of users use the same product on different platforms, like they switch from mobile to the web. And that's like a problem that we're trying to solve right now at the current product that I'm working on, because we have several designers and it's hard to sync, because yeah, we can see that same things look differently, and this is super misleading for users that switch between iOS and web. External consistency is also a thing. Like there are industry standards in most industries. For like a very handy example that you've definitely seen is placing a basket, a cart, in the top right corner of any e-commerce website. Placing sign-in also in the top right corner, and search is usually somewhere in the top bar, not necessarily in the center. It can be to the right, to the left, but it's always there. And we see a lot of like bad performance if we don't comply with those standards, because people just expect these things to be there. And if they don't see them, they either assume that you don't have it, or they become irritated and search for them. You know, a lot of like very fashionable e-commerce websites that want to look like not all the others, they use things like cart in some unexpected place. And I've seen that a lot. But after some, like a couple of months, you go to the same website and they have cards in the top right corner, because otherwise the conversion is just so bad. So same things on Amazon. For example, in mobile, the right tab in the tab bar is always used for settings or account or more, and it can be named differently. Sometimes it's named with your name, or it's named settings or more or profile or account, doesn't matter. It's always something like which contains all the other secondary functions of the app, and also your data, settings, like referrals, support, things like that. So sometimes you can see profiles in top right corner or top left, but you won't see profile as the second or as the first tab in the tab bar, like never. And also there is such thing as platform conventions that you also need to comply with, because same things look differently on iOS and Android. For example, like here's two basic dialogues that block the screen and appear when they need to tell you something important and prompt you to make an important choice. And those look completely different. And when you design in your app, you may have the custom pop-up, that's okay. But if it looks more like this, and this is an Android app, this will look unprofessional and misleading for users. They may not even, understand this consciously, but they will feel like this app is alien to the environment that it is in. And this will create this slight feeling of discomfort and distrust. So don't do that. Okay, next major principle is personalization, customization, and acceleration. User interface must be tailored to users' preferences and needs, and the most usable features must be the most accessible. As you may know, Pinterest is like the king of personalization. They base their entire model on personalized content, which you can see on the home screen, in search, in your profile, like everywhere. Everything is tailored for you. But even if the app is not based on personalization entirely, like Revolut app, this is like the banking app, they still can provide you a certain level of customization. So customization and personalization are same but different, because personalization is when app adapts to you. The app studies your behavior and adapts to you. And customization is when the app allows you to customize the experience. Like here in Revolut, you can go to the widgets panel and add different widgets on your home screen in the same fashion like iOS home. Yeah, and about acceleration, it's a different thing. And like one bright example would be suggestions for the popular sums of money for transfer. And also, this is very widely used for in banking apps, in financial apps like crypto exchanges and stock exchanges. They will also suggest you with a certain amounts of money to start, or like your last used sum. And another thing that impressed me in Revolut app is on the left screen is that they added these mathematical functions right on top of the keyboard, and this is very smart. I'm really interested whether they are testing this or whether they somehow researched and grabbed users' demand, because they already have a feature like split the bill. Like when you have a dinner with your friend in a restaurant and you pay for both, you can split it right in Revolut, and this is done in seconds. This person just gets a notification like pay half. But this is a different thing. You just click send, and you see this screen where you can input like the amount, but you can also make mathematical actions here with it. And yeah, it's interesting because sometimes people pay like part of their bill with cash, sometimes need to pay for someone's work, and you need to like multiply their rate and the amount of hours they spend. And it's really interesting that they decided to provide all these features right here in the send window. I wonder if people will use that. Yeah, another like great example of acceleration is again this OTP screen. Also, one thing that we used to have all over, and eventually everybody switched to the second option that is on the next screen. So what is wrong here? We enter the mobile phone and land on the first screen, like sign up screen. There is only one input field here, so we have to tap it to make it in focus. As we focus it, we need to input the code, and as we input the code, we like need to double check it and then click continue. It's a pretty straightforward flow, right? But there is room for improvement, because whenever you have just one logical positive or negative, like just one logical action on the screen that a user will do, like no matter what, they will do it, just do it for the user. So what we can do here is minimize 3 taps and make them just 1 tap. So as we like this, as we enter the phone, we land on this screen and the field is pre-selected, because it's the only option that a user may do, just pre-select it, right? So we can do it for them. It's pre-selected. They just type in the code or like press on this suggestion, and as they input the code gets verified immediately. They don't need to tap anything, because if the code is wrong, they will just get a, a verification here telling that they need to re-enter. And if it is right, they just proceed. So we need no action from them. So we minimized 3 taps into 1 tap. And this is an approach that, like an objects that we should look on every app that we design from this perspective, like whether we can do something that makes sense for the user and just remove this cognitive load and remove the number of taps. And the last principle is familiarity over memory. So we just need to minimize the need for users to remember information, because the app can do a lot to just suggest them with relevant information. Like this is very widely used across like any e-commerce apps. Like in Uber Eats, you can see what you've ordered and order it again. In Volt, you can see the recent restaurants that you ordered from, and in any app with a location search, you will see like suggestions for the location. That's pretty clear, I guess. Okay, so I'm nearly finished. What I wanted to tell you is what's next? What's the future of the interfaces in the near future? I think that first major trend is, of course, conversational interfaces. As you can see, here is like Notion. I think you're familiar with Notion. They recently introduced Ask AI button, and it just like casually helps me prepare this presentation. I just click continue writing, and it gives me more points that I can talk about. So we're gonna experience it more and more in all the apps that we're used to. And also, I think that for example, when I recently had to add some medications into my medical app, and every time I added a medication, I had to click like 20 different buttons to set the time, to set the frequency, to set if there's drops or pills or anything, to set how they look like, what they are for. And I think I spent like 4 to 5 minutes on each medication, and those were like 20. Yeah, I'm uh, I recently had a nutritionist, and they love this a lot of medication. Okay, so this we are not going to have that in a couple of years, right? We're going to have just a voice interface, and we're going to tell, please add vitamin C 3 times a day, drops, like 5 drops each time, and it will create it for you in seconds. And that's what I envision. So same for, traveling apps. You will just type in or tell, please find the tickets, return tickets to London. These are the dates. I need this amount of bags, and I'm traveling with a spouse and with a cat, and they will find you. So right now you have to click like 10, 20 buttons, filters for that. I think that's what's going to happen. And another major trend is spatial interfaces, because Apple recently introduced Vision Pro, and while it's still quite heavy and not very handy, I think we're still going to see those in the near future, at least for gaming industry, for entertainment. Maybe not in the near 2 years, but in 5 years, I think we're going to have those all over. So if this presentation gave you some understanding that you're interested in UX UI, here is a couple of next steps that you can do. I will share the presentation after the call, so you will be able to click those links. Those are just some useful links. The bloggers talking about UX, UI, and career in UX. Some inspiration websites. There are also mentorship websites, and one of them is free. It's an ADP list, and it's a very good website. I highly recommend if you want to get some advice on career, on your future development, on choosing a career, just go there. There are a lot of great designers. They all have reviews, so you will have an understanding whom you're going to talk with, and it is completely free. I used to mentor there as well, but I switched to paid mentorship. And of course, we have some paid mentorship websites. And also, there are such things as Apple guidelines, UI guidelines, and Google material design guidelines. And those are basically like a very interactive, beautiful, and informative textbook, especially material design guidelines. The whole interface is so great that you can learn from how it's designed, and they have a very handy explanations on everything, on every single pixel, on every single element. how it behaves, how it shouldn't behave, why it looks like it looks like, and all those things. So if you're interested in UI, I highly recommend you go to material design guidelines and just read through them, study it, and you will know more about UI than most, I don't know, junior designers that come from boot camps and try to start their career. I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a doubt. I have this idea for making an app which help people to buy 3D models. So if your designs app, like how can we make the app more personalized for them? Like if they are interested in buying certain sort of 3D model, like the suggestions will be like in YouTube, there are suggestions like that. So how to make it more interactable?
It's I don't know, the microphone is a bit buggy. I really didn't get that because it's um, how to say. Sorry, I didn't get that because of the microphone.
So my doubt is that so I have this idea of making a 3D model selling app. So like Amazon, so people can buy 3D models from it. So my doubt is how to make it more interactive, like more customizable. Like people can get it. Like, is it possible to make it more customizable in to make such apps?
3D models, right? Okay, so for 3D models, one thing that I imagine immediately is, uh, yeah, is making suggestions based on models that a person researches through, like adds to favorites or purchased ones, like models that are connected somehow, like by the theme or by aesthetics. And also one thing for like that comes immediately to my mind is of course allowing to somehow interact with the model right in like in the app. There is like one behavioral principle is that a user invests some like a bit of their effort in your app that makes them more likely to purchase. So if you will be able to like allow to, for example, rotate the model with your finger and allow to change the material, like not like any material, like I don't know, like 5 options, for example, or to change the color, that will make a person feel like they already own this thing a little bit, and this will increase the chance of conversion. So that's another thing. And the third thing you can do to provide some wow effect is some augmented reality. So allowing them to, preview how this object levitates above their workplace, like their table. But of course, this is not. This is more like a fun part. So I think that's it. Yeah, and allow them to add to favorites for sure. Yeah.
We got one more question that how do we get started with the designs and how this design will be implemented step by step for any production mode?
Sorry, what was the first question?
What's the step as a beginner? from where we can start our journey of designing, and how this design could be implemented in a large scale models or something.
To what models? Sorry.
uh, like if we are doing a design in a product for some sort of companies or something, so how do we start designing for that scale, as we don't know how the designs are going to be in the industry? So as a beginner, where we could start up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Basically, design process starts with research, and the company must provide you with extensive incoming materials. And if they don't, it's like either project managers, or if they are non-existent, your designers responsibility to collect all this information from the client. Those are their like findings, their takeaways about the market, their documentation on their own product, their brand identity and what it is based on. So their public image, and their, of course, their users and what they've learned about them, what they know about them. And you get all this information. If they already have some product, you usually as well do an audit of this product to see how it functions, to find some flaws, to find where, like, basically to find room for improvement in that product. And so yeah, basically design starts with discovery, like a very extensive design research phase, which can last for like, I don't know, if this is a very large project, it can last for months. And sometimes it's very good if a company has a budget for you to talk to the users, to existing users, to know how they use the product, what are their pain points, what are their needs, and everything. So yeah, it's basically it's hard to cover in one question, in one answer, short answer, but that's a very extensive research stage, which then results in some UX part. UX part is the wireframes, and before the wireframes, we can create flowcharts to draft the processes, to draft the system structure, and create some customer journey maps and things like that.
Hello, ma'am. There was one more doubt. So, as a beginner, how would these students get started, or what software solutions do you recommend for them to get started?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good question. I personally believe in the power of human connection. So you can get some base from books and from those human interface guidelines by Apple and Google. As I showed you here, yeah, you can follow all these bloggers and get some like regular bits of UI UX insights. But basically, I would recommend you go to the ADP list, find yourself a good free mentor, and talk to them and create a roadmap of your development. Just if they are a good designer, they will ask you a lot of questions, like similar to how we interview users. Questions that will allow them to understand what are your aspirations, what are your strong and weak sides, and how you can move forward. So you will be able to create some kind of a roadmap with this person, like development roadmap. Of course, there are boot camps, there are like academic courses on design, but not necessary actually. You can learn like in field, I believe. But yeah, answering your question, to start, I would start with reading the guidelines and finding myself a design mentor. Because this design mentor would probably be a person working in a real company, and they will have all of their findings backed up by their real world experience. And this is very important. not just reading a book on design, but having all these use cases available to you, like with this person.
Hello, ma'am. So we received one more question. As a student was asking, so there are many softwares like Figma, Canva, Illustrator, Webflow. So how can developers make use of this? As since we are an engineering college and we are from a technical background, how can we as engineers take advantage of these tools, or like design in a way that we get more advantage this way?
Well, actually, I'm not sure I know the answer to this question because I never asked developers what tools they use to like for their needs. But we designers do everything in Figma, and developers usually join our Figma files, get like superficially acquainted with Figma. So they don't design anything there. They mostly use comments to communicate with designers. And as we have the designs laid out, we comment on each like screen, how it behaves, what the animation would look like, where it takes, and so on. And developers, if they have some considerations, questions, or ideas, they usually communicate with us right there in Figma comments, or like on chat in Slack. They just like give a screenshot, and so we communicate via Slack.
Ma'am, so another question that we received is, you mentioned that Uber, so we when we are developing a new app, we should maintain and follow industry standards, right? So if we strictly adhere to those rules, won't apps tend to look similar? So there won't be any unique identity for each app if we strictly follow the rules. Could you give your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, do they look the same right now? I guess they don't, but they actually follow all the rules already. So if you look at the major market players like Airbnb, Spotify, Uber, Amazon, they actually already do follow all these rules. So when I say follow the rules, it doesn't mean anything more extensive, like using absolutely, like all banks should use blue color. Of course, this is not the rule. But yeah, all e-commerce websites should have the card in the top right, and it will not influence their identity in any way because they can use the icon, like whatever icon they want. They may use the colors, the fonts, like everything can be very unique, but the users will always know where to find the card, which is very, very good. So I'm not saying that there are a lot of bad products on the market. Mostly, actually, most products are quite good. There are bad ones, but and I can also find some inconsistencies, some problems in like Uber apps, but they still are top performers. They still are very good, and we learn from them a lot. And they don't look the same. So yeah, more on the consistency, you can see in these guidelines, you will see that they are quite strict in some aspects. For example, you need to comply with all the interactive elements having some minimum size. And this is, so for example, like a tappable icon must be like 24 by 24 pixels minimum. And this is because we have thick fingers. So this is based on human anatomy. And this like doesn't influence identity and authenticity of the apps in a bad way. It influences all the apps in a good way because they become more handy for users to use.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering these questions. We have received two more questions. So the first of those was, right now you just mentioned how to use guidelines. So when do we understand to break them? So there are some situations, for example, the website of Zara was mentioned. So they don't really follow guidelines often. So when does a designer have the idea to break the guidelines or try something different? Could you give your opinion on that as well?
Well, we need so regarding guidelines, they've been created for the apps to be handy for the users. And when apps are handy, when they are comfortable to use and user-friendly, this gives business results, right? So most businesses will actually, like per my experience, will actually react quite hesitantly if you give them some fresh layout. Yeah, I know what you mean about Zara. Even though they still have shopping bag in the top right corner, search in the login in the top right corner, search on top, they still have the layout is less monotonous than on other websites, and it's a bit different. But at the same time, if you see their product page, like the page of an item, they still also follow the industry standard, which is show photos on the left, show sizes, and add to cart on the right. So there is a certain margin to which you can break the guidelines and to which you can use them. And most businesses will just not allow to break them too much. When you can break them is when you're creating something artsy, something creative. So when the whole purpose of the website is more to impress, to convey an identity rather than be utility. So this is for art, for fashion, things like that. So if you're designing a banking app, you will need it to be more utility. You have to follow the guidelines quite strictly because you need to just to perform best. But if you are creating a website to win a designer award, and this is a website about like your online gallery of your art, you can do whatever you want. So this is about finding a balance for each particular project, for each particular business you're working with, and how much you can sacrifice this recognition, discoverability, to the impression, to the wow effect. And sometimes we can actually do both.
Ma'am, so before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a personal question of mine. So, what are your opinions on AI? So recently, Figma announced that they'll be having AI tools to support, and almost every platform is having AI tools to increase the productivity and creativity of users. So, what are your opinions on that?
Well, I think we're going to have more and more AI interfaces. And I recently, actually, I now work in AI, which is a text-to-speech AI. And I can see how it is already used by like thousands of users in their daily life. And for example, this is a text-to-speech AI. For example, they allow you to read any content with a great variety of different voices. You can set the voice, you can even record your own voice and create a speaker from your own voice. You can adjust speed. And I see that a lot of people use that in their daily lives. For example, for students, for teachers and professors, they use that to read faster, basically to ingest more information in a period of time and to be able to do other things while they study. For example, you don't have to just sit and read the textbook now. You can go for a walk and listen it on a 2x speed, so 2 times faster than you read. And you will save some time and you will stay fit and you will ingest your information that you need. So I think we're going to meet more and more use cases like that, becoming AI more vital parts of our lives and accelerating our learning, working, and creating content for sure. So like in Notion, as I showed, you can now write a whole article. By the way, yeah, recently, for example, when I prepared for my global talent visa, it's a very extensive case that you need to provide to the UK government, like a lot of documentation which supports you being eligible for the visa. So it took me, I don't know, 3 months of writing the articles, creating my written reference letters, and so on. So I spent a lot of time on that. And right after I got the visa, ChatGPT has been publicly released, and I understood that, well, a letter that took me like 2 days to write could be written in an hour now with the ChatGPT, because it just reads in, it just writes the letter, I adjust it somehow to meet my personal story, and I have it ready in an hour. So I think you probably use AI as much as I do now, or maybe even more. So it's going to be everywhere. And it's actually hard to predict how much it will influence our lives. Yeah, because I don't know how they are going to, like, now they're going to create like a movie or a series like 5-10 times faster. And what's going to happen with all the artists and designers and developers, it's hard to predict, and it's a bit frightening. Designer-wise, I think that I don't think that AI will replace designers, but for sure, designers who use AI will replace designers who don't.
Thank you, ma'am. So with that, we've come to the end of our session. So firstly, I'd like to thank you, ma'am, Julia, ma'am, for taking your time and having a wonderful session for us. I'm pretty sure all of the students here have learned something new and gained new insights into the design concepts that you mentioned earlier. So everyone from Muthoot Institute wishes you a very warm thank you for taking your time and coming to this session. Really, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me. And yeah, I wish you a great day and great weekend. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, ma'am. Okay.